Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Kelly Flannery. I'm the very proud president and CEO of the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce. We are thrilled this morning to have with us Dr. Jerry Parrish. He is the lead economist with the Florida Chamber Foundation. I have had the absolute honor of getting to spend lots of time with Dr. Parrish over these past several weeks, thanks to our partnership with the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for being here with us via Zoom to greet our members here in Tampa, Florida, and to share with us a little bit of your insight and information on the state of our economy here in Florida and what we can expect moving forward. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Dr. Parrish. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kelly, and welcome everyone. Please feel free to type in questions as I'm speaking. I may answer some of them as we go along. I'll try to keep up with them, but I do want to show you a few slides. You can't have an economist without showing a few slides, so I want to do that. First of all, I want to show you what we send out every day at the Florida Chamber. Every day we have a daily email. You can sign up for it at flchamber/coronavirus, and you get a map like this that shows, talking about the coronavirus. We've quit really showing the maps of the cumulative number of cases by county. That's on the Florida scorecard. I'll show you where to see that. But really what's important is the average daily cases. The cumulative cases we're over 100,000 now, but you have to remember that a lot of those people are, fine. They recovered, they may or may not have symptoms. So really what we're keeping our eye on is the average daily new cases. This is a 14-day average, and we show it every day for every single county. You can also see things important on this that if we do that, we show that it's up to 6.2%. Number of deaths, number of people tested is over 1.6 million. We've had a substantial amount of tests over the last few weeks especially. And we'll talk about whether that's the main thing driving up the case numbers or not. But you can see all this info on the Florida scorecard. You can see it on the website 24 hours a day. This is the front page at the state level. You can see things. We've put a COVID-19 info on the top of the normal info that we have on here. But let's talk about our economy. You got to remember Florida is still a $1 trillion economy. If we were an independent country, we'd be the 17th largest economy in the world. Before COVID-19, we were creating 1 out of every 11 U.S. jobs, actually more than that since 2015. And every day we had about 900 net new people moving to the state, $1.19 million of adjusted gross income per hour. And if you're familiar with the book, How Many Walks, that's a project that tracks people, weighted by income, where they move to and where they move from. So Florida's been a big beneficiary of that. And, we've been dependent on visitors from other states and other countries, had over 131 million of them last year. But you can see at the top of the COVID-19 info up there, 1.41 million people are unemployed in Florida. Those are the May numbers. Interesting, we've only had 113 days of positive COVID cases in the state. And take a look at the number right to the left of that, 8.48% positive cases. I'll talk more about that in just a second. But let's go to what you can find. Hillsborough County, every single county, that little button on the top right that says View County Data, you can use that and scroll down to see the county numbers. So I wanted to show you Hillsborough. The number of new cases, the number of COVID cases, nearly 6,000. That number goes down, never goes down. There's nobody following those people and taking them off the list once they get well. That's that cumulative number that we're really no longer talking about. But 222.3 average daily cases in the county. Just to the right of that, 12.47% positive. That's a big number, and I'll show you more about that. But the days since the first COVID case confirmed in the state of Florida is the same as Florida, because the first 2 cases were found in Hillsborough County. I don't know if everybody knows that or not. But nearly 90,000 unemployed people, lost 102,000 jobs. That sounds pretty dire, and I'll talk more about that as well. One of the things that I appreciate about y'all's chamber is you've got the Florida scorecard county level tiles on your website. And so we appreciate that. Appreciate whoever got that put up there. You can click on those tiles right through your chamber scorecard and get info like this. Let's say you wanted to take a look at the number of average daily cases. Was it going up or going down? Well, it's going up because it's red. Red means you're going in the wrong direction. Green means you're going in the right direction. And there's a lot of red, and it's red all over the state right now. But if you literally click on this box, this 222.3, let me find my mouse here, and you can download the chart, or you can download the raw data. Last night I downloaded the raw data, and you can download it in Excel. So I made this chart out of the data on the scorecard, so it's always there. You can see the number of cases has expanded. Average daily cases has gone way up. And that's been typical in Florida since around June the 1st. In most counties, the number has gone up substantially. Now, if you clicked on the other button, which was the percent positive, or no, the unemployed people, let's click on that one. You can see that you were running, a little over 20,000 back in February, and now you're up to nearly that 90,000 rate. So if you want to use the scorecard, you can click on it. You can download a chart. This is the exact chart you would download. You can download the raw data and make your own chart. And we encourage people to do that, to send a chart to your legislators, send it to your county commission, whatever piece of data that you're interested in. I make this offer to you when we set up the Florida scorecard. I started at the Chamber Foundation a little over 5 years ago. We started working on this scorecard. There's a button on the bottom that says contact us. And if you type in a note ever on the Florida scorecard in the contact us field down there and push the button, your email will come directly to my email inbox. So if you ever need help with data, you're looking for something specific, I know where all the data is. And if I don't, my grad students at FSU do. I teach over there in the Masters in Applied Economics. Be glad to help you find the data that you really need. Now let's see what all this is doing to the Florida economy. I want to show you the job numbers. Remember I said since 2011, Florida had created more than one out of every 11 jobs in the country. You can see the number of people working. This is the standard non-farm job series. This is seasonally adjusted. That's what a lot of economists look at. And what it shows is continual job growth with the exception of September of 2017. And if you don't remember back then, if we were live in a big room, I'd ask people to, tell me what happened then. And the answer would have been Hurricane Irma. It looked like we had a big job loss, which we did. But you got to remember when jobs are counted, they're counted during the 12th of the month, whatever week that falls in. That's when jobs are counted here in Florida. And it just so happened when you have a big storm rolling in on the 10th and the 11th of the month, and you count on the week of the 12th, that we had a big downward spike, but we recovered. But you can see the peak there, February 2020, more than 9 million jobs. And now we're a little over 8 million. So you can look at it that way. How many jobs have we lost since February? We certainly recovered some when we got the May numbers, and we got those just this past Friday. The June the June numbers will come out. I believe it's July the 19th. It'll be the third Friday of the month. You'll be able to see an explanation on the Florida Chamber website. I do a video called Florida by the Numbers. You probably will see the one, released today that I shot yesterday. But we'll track these job numbers and how the recovery is going over the next several months. I want to show you the categories of job loss. Total, this is a year-over-year look, May 2019 to May 2020. And remember, we grew jobs from May until February. So we had a little gains, and then, so many of them wiped out. But You can see out of the 850,400 jobs we lost, 460,000 of those were in leisure and hospitality. And that's a drop of 36.8% of leisure and hospitality jobs. Those folks were not working in May when we counted jobs. Some of them have, gone back to work since then because things were starting to open up, but not everybody was open up. But you can see trade, transportation, utilities, a loss of 123,000. That's where wholesale and retail trade are in that category. Those are some big numbers. Professional business services, over 100,000. Those are things like consulting firms and other groups that business people hire. But take a look down there toward the bottom. Construction actually gained jobs, and people are a little shocked by that. But what's happened is a lot of construction projects were actually accelerated when things were not many people were out on the road. They increased the I-4 corridor, I-4 ultimate work. We had a lot of construction companies split their crews into 2 and 3 shifts instead of having everybody on the job site at the same time. So we actually created some jobs there. But you can see not big hits in financial activities and manufacturing. Those have weathered the storm much better than most of the other ones. Education and health services, that's the way the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts those groups together. What we had is a substantially higher loss the month before because we had dentist office shut down, and we had elective surgeries not happening. But you'll see those come back pretty quickly. Certainly, it's a little odd during a pandemic when you have people that are working in healthcare laid off, but that's actually what happened. So you'll see that recover pretty quickly. And I think what we'll be looking at is the recovery, and I'll talk more about that in a second. You'll have a lot of industries coming back sooner rather than later, but retail and wholesale trade and leisure and hospitality are going to be the people that lag here. And one of the biggest questions I've gotten when this thing first started is the hit to the economy going to be larger than the Great Recession or smaller? And some people were saying, how bad is this? Is it going to be as bad as the Great Depression back in the 30s? So I put together, GDP drop, and I want to show you here, just to put this in context. There's still obviously a lot of unknowns on how deep this recession is going to be. So I put the 2020 estimate range there at -2% to -8%. -2 would mean we're going to have a pretty quick recovery, a shallow V-shaped recovery where most people are going to go back to work pretty soon. Compare that against 08, 09. We only had a 2.6% drop in the economy over those couple of years during the Great Recession, which is what everybody remembers and remembers how bad it is, because you may have had a friend or neighbor or yourself lose a job, lose a house. A lot of things happened during then. But so compared to the Great Depression, 1930s, nearly a 30% drop in the economy. We're nowhere near that. Matter of fact, the two most prominent forecasts out there right now, one of them is the Wall Street Journal consensus forecast. That's where they ask a bunch of economists around the country and take their average forecast. That's a -5.5%. So it's in that range, -2 to -8. The other forecast is the Federal Reserve has forecast a -6% drop in the U.S. economy. Now, that's bad. Certainly it's bigger than the Great Recession. I'll talk about how quickly that is, but let's talk about 6%. Let's put that into perspective. Is that big? Well, of course it's big. It's bigger than the Great Recession, and that seemed to linger on for a long time. It took us a while to recover. It took really till 2011 for us to really accelerate job growth here in the state of Florida. But what's 6% of Florida's economy? That 6% of Florida's economy that we're going to lose is bigger than 7 U.S. states. And that's a little shocking to people, but you can see the state. Vermont, you wouldn't be surprised. Rhode Island, some of those, you don't think of that being a great big economy. But, big places like Montana, North Dakota is a big oil producer. The thing that's really surprising to most folks is the 6% drop is bigger than the entire economy of the state of Alaska. Now, I put Maine in blue in a different color because that 6% is right at the size of Maine's economy. So you can say, during 2020, we're going to lose an economy bigger than the state of Alaska, bigger than these other states, and about the same size as the state of Maine, which is a big deal. There's a lot of people, as you know, already laid off. We got 1.4 million people laid off in the month of May. Certainly we'll recover some of those jobs when we get the June numbers, but this is a big deal. And I've been looking at the forecast recovery of jobs. I sat in on a webinar the other day, a forecaster, a pretty prominent forecaster out of the state of Georgia at Georgia State University there in Atlanta. And here, I want to show you his forecast and kind of compare it to what my thoughts were as far as the shape and the duration. Here's his forecast, and it's a little shocking. You can see where we were Q1 2020. I took the numbers off this because this is the U.S. forecast. This is not specifically for Florida or any other state. And you can see big drop in Q2, even further losses in the third quarter of this year, and then starting to grow back again. But notice that in his forecast, and this guy's name is Dr. Rajiv Dhawan, a very prominent award-winning forecaster. He doesn't believe the U.S. is going to be back to the same number of jobs even at the end of 2023. Well, I'm going to disagree with him on one thing, but I'm going to agree with him on the shape of this. More than probably a couple of months ago, what I forecast was that the economy would come back in the form of a Nike swoosh. And if you kind of superimpose that in your mind, that's really the shape of what's going on, because we have, different industries coming back at different times, at different speeds. And honestly, until we get in Florida, until we see two things. One is a treatment. People will feel more comfortable about going out and do stuff. Yeah, you might get sick, but there's a treatment readily available at my doctor's office. When that happens, you'll see a shift up back toward normal. More people going out, more people comfortable with going to restaurants, and they'll be, closer to full capacity by then. More people traveling, although you do see a lot of Floridians traveling. Right now is a great time to take your family to some place in Florida. Maybe you haven't been or haven't been in a while. But really, to recover completely for the state of Florida, we have to have a vaccine that's widely available. Before we get those, 131 million visitors from other states and other countries, it's going to be a while. We certainly don't expect a vaccine until sometime next year. How long it takes to get it widely distributed. But remember that there's people, and we have snowbirds coming down. They're typically older people. They're more, reticent about getting out and traveling now. Will they come back? When will they come back? And when will we be able to have conventions again? And those kind of things that really drive Florida's economy and bring in a lot of tax revenue for the state. That's one of the things that we're really working at. Trying to figure out. And so I believe that Florida will be back to, February 2020 employment sooner than this, substantially sooner. I'm not 100% sure about that, because we really are dependent on having a treatment that's solid and everybody, has access to, and then a vaccine. So what's that doing to different counties around the state? So not only is, is by industry going to be uneven, it's going to be uneven by county as well. I wanted to show you this. This is the unemployment rate by county, just to show you that really if you take a look at who's dependent on visitors from other states and other countries, this is the map you would come up with. Same thing as unemployment, high levels of unemployment in leisure and hospitality, as you know. But you can see Osceola and Orange County right there in the center of this. Lake and Polk County, where a lot of people work, live and then drive in, into the Orlando metro area in a lot of cases. But you can see that, as far as Hillsborough County, lower than the state average. And, Florida is lower than the national average as far as unemployment rate. So we actually have been less hard hit than some. But so we've talked about different industries coming back at different speeds, different counties, certainly because of their dependence on different industries at different speeds. But, let's also think about different people coming back at different speeds. I heard the Federal Reserve say about 40% of the job losses so far had been for people making $40,000 or less. And, we've, at the Florida Chamber Foundation, we've been working on our prosperity project for quite a long time. So I'm going to show you some info about that. Who's going to get hurt the worst? People that are living in poverty, people in lower paying industry jobs, they're going to take the worst hit here. And so I want to show you some of the numbers that we use on a regular basis at the Florida Chamber Foundation and talk about with this prosperity movement that we have, trying to provide opportunities for people at every zip code. What are the numbers for your area? And you can see the numbers here for Hillsborough, 64,000 kids plus living in poverty, and a rate of 20.7%, but that's actually lower than the state rate. One of the things when we started doing this is figuring out, wow, a county is really too big an area for to really concentrate on poverty. So I plotted all of Florida's 983 zip codes. There's actually 1,472 total zip codes, but some of them are post office boxes and those kind of things. But really where people live, 983 zip codes. What you see is when you look at this problem, you can solve 10% of Florida's child poverty by just killing it in 16 of those 983 zip codes. And you could kill half of it in 150 or, just a little more than 15% of Florida's zip codes. So we've been working on this project. Our CEO's been started this with former Speaker of the House, Will Weatherford. And we've really done a lot of work to show people where people are living in poverty. Some of the solutions that we, have come out with are, we key on third grade reading scores. This is on the Florida scorecard. You can see your county here at 52. What that means is 52% of Hillsborough County third graders are reading at level 3 or above. So, if you can read at grade level, you're in a lot better position for further schooling. Probability of going, and graduating from high school is higher. Probability of staying out of jail is higher. A lot of things are higher. When you really have the good fundamentals of reading. So with our Business Alliance for Early Learning, we've been concentrating on this. And really what I like to show is, how many kids are not reading at grade level, because we have a goal of getting, having less than 10% of Florida's kids in poverty by 2030. That's one of our Florida 2030 blueprint goals. And, one of the best ways you can help the next generation stay out of poverty is helping them to learn it at third grade level. So we've got a big concentration on this. You can see, Hillsborough County has the second highest number in the state of kids not reading at grade level. There's a way to get involved with our Business Alliance for Early Learning. You can see it circled down there at flchamber.com/get-involved. You can always contact me through the scorecard and say, hey, I want to be involved in this. So, how are we getting information to people? I'm going to show you something that does not exist yet as far as what the public knows. And I will ask you to keep, watch for the announcement, because we're about to announce a new tool that we've developed to help people concentrate on this. So I'm going to give you a preview. Very few people in the entire state have seen this. But we've come up with a way to show third grade level reading numbers by school and in the poverty zip codes. So you're going to soon, we'll announce this. We're going to have a mapping project to where we've mapped every zip code in the state of Florida and every third grade reading score that we can get for every single county. And you'll be able to take a look at this. Right north of your office, 33607, you can lay your mouse over the zip code and it'll show you there's 1,884 kids living in poverty. That's a 42.2% under 18 poverty rate. And also you can lay your mouse over any school and you can see not far from the office up there in that zip code is, Dunbar Elementary Magnet School. Reading school is score is 42. That means 32 kids are not reading at grade level. I want to warn you a little bit about the third grade reading scores, and that's my last slide. I'm just telling you this data is going to be available very soon. We'll have announcements here at the chamber. I want to remind you that just because a school has a low third grade reading score does not mean it's a bad school. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories. I talked in front of my own county commission here in Leon County, Florida. And I showed all the schools, and I used to have to do it manually. Now we got a website that we'll make available very soon to where anybody can use this. But I had to manually put all the numbers in for all the schools. I mean, it took forever, but I wanted to show my county commission what the third grade reading levels were in our own county. You got to remember, we got a bunch of state employees, we got a bunch of PhDs running around here, professors and, FAMU and Florida State. And, this is a pretty highly educated economy compared to most of the rest of Florida. So I showed this and one of my county commissioners, started talking. He said, because I showed a school that had like a 29% of their kids reading at third grade level. And this county commissioner made the comment that we should quit giving that school tax dollars and we should quit taxing the parents who sent their kids to that school because they had a low reading score. And my thought was exactly this. Unfortunately, at the chamber, I get to say anything I want to. Nobody ever says, "Oh, you shouldn't have said that," because I get to freely speak my mind. I thought, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's probably a miracle, where that school is that they got 29% of those kids reading at third grade level, reading at level 3 or above. And so it really impressed upon me the fact of every time I talk about third grade reading scores, to make sure that you don't think that's a bad school. You have to look at those kids. Those kids may have showed up for school hungry every single day. You don't know if their parents ever read to them at night, but it's a real big opportunity. We've had a lot of business people around the state adopt a classroom and help those kids in first grade, second grade, third grade. You shouldn't wait until third grade to help some kid learn at third grade level. You can start earlier than that. And that's something a lot of business individuals, a lot of local chambers have taken on because, you got to remember, we're going to recover from COVID-19. What we want to keep the focus on here at the Florida Chamber Foundation is our Florida 2030 goals, which means we want 100% of kids reading at third grade level, 100% of Florida's kids. We want to reduce child poverty by less than half, to have less than 10% by the year 2030. That's something we're shifting to. We certainly are glad to provide information about COVID-19, about the economy, about anything anybody wants to talk about, but we want to make sure people are still focusing on those goals. We're not letting up here at the Florida Chamber Foundation. So we appreciate what you guys are doing in your community. We can all do more, and just, having that info available has moved business people to say, hey, that school is in my neighborhood, or I went to that school when I was a kid. I can help 13 kids learn how to read. So that's my only request of you, to concentrate on that. I believe within about 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have this tool publicly available for everybody to use, and use in the proper way. Show it to your county commissioners. Your school board people may take offense that you're showing this kind of info, but until we really get the sense of, hey, there's this many kids in this zip code and there's this many kids in this school that need help. When you break it down in a lot of these schools, there's, 13 kids and there's 25 kids and there may be 40 kids in some school. It actually, the light bulb goes off in their head. Wow, that's a problem that I can attack and that I can help those groups. So anyway, I appreciate you listening to me this morning. I see some questions down there in the chat, but I'll turn it back over to you, Kelly, and answer questions as long as you guys want to stay around. Thanks a bunch.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. And I think this is such great information that you've shared, because the very last point that you made, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic right now and the economic crisis caused by that. But we still have to be looking forward, what's going to happen next year and 5 years and 10 years and 20 years down the road. And so I appreciate that you were able to kind of give us a snapshot and some additional tools and things that we should be looking at and considering, both as a chamber and as a community as we're moving forward, and continuing to put emphasis on the work that we do with our local school system and early childhood education as well. So I appreciate all the information you gave us today. We are happy to open up questions for the group. So please feel free to put your question in the chat, or if you feel that maybe it's a little too long, if you just put your name in there, I can unmute you and we can have you, you have a great opportunity here while we have Dr. Parrish, if there's any questions that you'd like to ask. All right, there's a question from Rita, and she had asked what the chamber is doing in regards to short-term and long-term as it relates to the reading objective.
That's a great question. We have had for a while our Business Alliance for Early Learning. And a lot of what we've been doing has been connecting those business people that want to get involved with early education and other types of education. You're about to see a pretty big ramp up. Let me tell you, the other stuff that's going on as well, not just in education. You can't really separate early education from attacking poverty. And so one of the projects that we've done, we've hired a full-time person up here to run our prosperity initiative. And they're working with a Business Alliance, and here's part of what's going on. And we know education's fundamental to helping people get out of poverty. So what we're doing with our prosperity initiative, working with the Business Alliance and businesses all over the state, is we're recruiting zip code champions to oversee every single zip code. It's certainly voluntary. We're not paying you, but we've got people volunteering, saying, hey, this is my zip code. I want to do something. So we've got zip code champions that we're signing up, and we're actually signing up people for all the root causes of poverty underneath it. The Chamber Foundation believes there are 10 root causes of poverty, things like housing and healthcare and education and all those things. So what you're going to see is you're going to see people who are concentrating on this, that can get the business community together to help schools, to help nonprofits, to help government agencies, to help philanthropic folks understand, where they can apply, their funds to have the most benefit. Part of that is a zip code mapping project where, we can match your zip code with others in the state and potentially others who've had really good success in some program or another that's done really well. It's a really comprehensive strategy. It's something that we work on every single day. We've hired people full-time to do that with plans to expand this. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot more involvement with businesses in the local area. Certainly, we'll be rolling out more. We kind of got delayed a little bit of some of this because of the concentration on having to pay attention to COVID-19. But you're going to see a lot more of that. I will encourage you that starting sometime in July, we're going to have a Prosperity Summit. Instead of having one live, we're going to have 5 webinars. that, that are going to attack these 10 root causes of poverty. We'll have a lot more information to announce then about how this project's going to work. But thanks for the question. That's a good question.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Jen, and she asked, what method or parameters are being used to measure poverty?
That's a great question because poverty, and a lot of people don't understand this. So most people understand this part, that, poverty is a definition of the federal government. And it's, you make, your household size is this, on the little chart, you make less than this amount of money, then, you're considered in poverty. We use the data from the American Community Survey, and that's readily available. It's free for everybody to use. So the maps that were made that were that I showed to you, those are the American Community Survey data maps. What we also do, though, you got to think about, I don't know if anybody from the United Way, local United Way, is on the call, but we also plot and show the ALICE population on the scorecard right beside the poverty info. And for those of you that aren't familiar with ALICE, ALICE means asset limited, income constrained, but employed. So it's folks that are struggling, in a lot of counties, it's, in the near 50% range of people that, they're above the poverty line, or actually the ALICE number that I'm quoting includes poverty. We have a poverty rate of 20-25%, but there's a total of 45% of people that fall into the ALICE population, which is poverty, plus the group that are really struggling. A lot of folks out there, couldn't come up with $400 if they had an emergency, and they couldn't come up with $400 in cash or credit. It's that group of people. And so one of the cool things I'm doing this year is with my teaching and the Master's in Applied Economics students that I teach at FSU, I've got them looking at the effects of COVID-19 on the poverty population as well as the ALICE population. So we're actually going to have a pretty sophisticated look at what this disease is going to do. And then we can talk about, some of the things that we can do to help that population recover from COVID-19, help them get more skills to get a better job in the workforce. I think Florida's got a big opportunity right now. Got a lot of people that say, hey, okay, I'm not, I don't want to stay in the industry that I am. It's obviously subject to, disruption more than something I'm comfortable with. I think we really got a great opportunity to get more people into retraining some of those jobs that are open, that we can't find people to fill. With our state colleges, we got the best state college system in the entire country. We've got opportunities here now for people that while they are looking for work, to help them get into some training, to help them get out of poverty and get out of the ALICE population.
Thank you so much. All right, our next question, we're going to shift topic just a moment, and this is from Debbie. I'm going to read her question because she wrote it very eloquently. Respecting that you're an economist, and this may seem like a question for the medical profession, your perspective is tremendous for our state and greatly valued, and that is true, so thank you so much. What do you think about travel between now and the summer months of July and August? As you mentioned, our need for tourism to bolster the economy, and yet travel in and out of the state may negatively impact our COVID cases. Without a vaccine, what are your thoughts on businesses allowing employees to travel for work and/or individuals traveling for fun?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that question has not come up. But what I'll tell you is I'm very excited to be traveling again starting this afternoon. I've got my first in-person meeting. I couldn't even find my suitcase. I travel a lot and give speeches all over the state and do a lot of meetings and a lot of conferences. I think it's up to the company. I think we'll see business travel starting back, even with the number of cases going up like it is, because there's really not much of a replacement for in-person meetings when you're talking about. I'm going over to talk to a group who wants to do a project, an economic development kind of project. And they need an economist to do it, and it's something that the Chamber Foundation works on a lot. So I'm going to go talk to them in person. So I'm for it, but there are people who will not travel, and I certainly understand that. There's companies that will not let their employees travel. I really think this is an opportunity, and I know Visit Florida is doing this. They're changing their marketing to, hey, you Floridians, why don't you go somewhere in Florida? Take your family, and they won't say this, but it's like, hey, I would encourage you, take your family someplace that you've wanted to go. But typically this time of year, it's overcrowded by people from other states and other countries. If you're, healthy and you're, below, you got to look at the disease pattern here. The majority of the deaths have been from people in nursing homes and people over 65 or 70 years old. Now, I think when we have a treatment out there and that you can go to your doctor with, more people will feel comfortable about traveling for business, for pleasure. But I think those people that are willing to travel and they find a place that, this is, doing the protocols for keeping clean and social distancing, that certainly Florida's economy needs that. It's big tax revenue. Visitors from other states and other countries provide about $6 billion in state tax revenue, more than $5 billion in local tax revenue, and a lot of jobs. And so I suspect you'll see a lot of people that just will refuse to travel anytime. There could be a vaccine. They'd still refuse to travel for a while. They would watch and see what happens. But I believe that, we're getting pretty close to where there'll be a treatment and people will feel comfortable, at least by the fall. And my big hope this year is, and I've been quoted saying this, my big hope is people ask me, when will things look normal to you? And I'll say, when we have college football. If we have college football and whether there's people in the stands or not, you'll know things are getting back to normal. And, so I really think not so much this summer, you won't see it, but by fall, you'll see people starting to travel again, people starting to have meetings in person. Right now we're hoping to have our Future Florida Forum at the end of September, just like normal, and probably where you can choose to either come in person or watch on Zoom or some other platform if you don't feel comfortable in traveling. I think you'll see a lot of that happening where it'll be optional for you to be there. But people like me want to get out. I'm very excited about getting in a car and driving 4 hours today. And just that sense of returning to normal, because I haven't rented a car and gone anywhere on business since March, and I want to. I want to get out on the road. So I hope that answered your question. We're starting to see it here, starting to see more people, filling up their offices, bringing people back in. And I believe by September or so, you'll start to see a substantial amount more because the case numbers will start going down. People will feel more comfortable.
Well, thank you so much for that. I know that as my family is discussing our plans going into the latter part of the year, we're definitely looking forward to a family vacation at some point this year. I think we probably will stay here in the state of Florida because we do want to make sure that we're contributing to our economy throughout the state as well, especially during these times. There's one more question and then we'll turn it back over to you for a quick wrap up before we end our time together today. There is a thank you from Jen for all of the resources and information that you shared today, but she did have a question. If someone had an interest in attending one of the webinars or the summit that you've mentioned, how would they go about getting access to those types of programs?
Great question. You can, look on floridachamber.com, look under the foundation and under prosperity. But this is something that we'll send to the local chambers all over the state of Florida. And so if you would pass it on to all your members, we'd certainly appreciate that.
Absolutely. We definitely will. And like I said earlier, we're so incredibly thankful for our partnership with the Florida Chamber. My board has heard me say this multiple times over the past several months. The relationship that we have with the Florida Chamber and the U.S. Chamber have been so incredibly beneficial for our local organization, and the information and the resources that you all have been able to provide, that we've been able to pass along to our business owners here in Tampa, Florida. I really love the interactive, FAQ and everything that you all have put together as phase 1 and phase 2 have rolled out. Just such great information that we've been able to pass along. So thank you so much for that. And we will absolutely always be more than willing to pass along any information for events and different things that our members are invited to. I know that we have several of our board members that are going to be attending the presentation that's coming up next as well. So thank you so much for those invitations. Any last thoughts or just anything you'd like to wrap up with as we send everyone off into their week?
Well, first of all, thanks for putting the info on your scorecard again. That lets, that gets it more available to more people. But thanks for what you guys do. The best thing that you guys can do as a chamber is to help all your businesses get back in business, help them with the information they need. And so we appreciate your work on that, because I know it's been a lot of hours for you down there. And just thank all the members for showing up. Anybody at any time can contact me either through the scorecard. You don't have to remember my name. The email will come directly to me. You can call the Florida Chamber up here and say, hey, let me talk to that economist guy. I do return my phone calls and emails. And so especially those folks that are looking for data. Maybe you're part of a nonprofit that's applying for a grant. A lot of us are volunteers in the local community, and you need that info to help your group apply for a grant somewhere. One of the projects that you're working on. Feel free to contact me. I know where all the data is and what's good and what's not. I'll be glad to at least help point you to where you can get info or just download it and send it to you, and just keeping involved in the community, because we're not going to be through this overnight. It's going to be really, really tough on our lower income folks in the state, and those of you that need help with helping them, just let me know. I'll see what I can do. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again so much, Dr. Jerry Parrish with the Florida Chamber Foundation and Florida Chamber of Commerce. We're so thankful to have you here with us today. As we mentioned several times, you'll have heard us talk about the Florida scorecard. We do have the Hillsborough County scorecard available on the South Tampa Chamber website, southtempachamber.org, under our News and Resources tab. And then you can also click right through to go to the Florida scorecard on the Florida Chamber website, and you are able to access information from all the different counties throughout the state of Florida, as well as just a wealth of information and metrics about what's happening throughout our state. Thank you again to Dr. Parrish. For those that are tuning in late, we'll have the video saved on both our Facebook page and it'll be up on our YouTube page later today as well. So if there's any information that you missed or that you want to go back and listen to or to share with your internal teams, we invite you to do that. Again, Kelly Flannery, the very proud president and CEO of the South Tampa Chamber. Thank you so much, Dr. Parrish. Thank you to the Florida Chamber for all of your resources. And we look forward to connecting with you again very soon.